Hello again. Continuing on with module number 5, case studies. You know, I showed you these various bottom quintile situations, the Challenger, Hubble, things like that, Korean Airlines. I thought it'd be useful to look at the other side of it. These are some of the things that I had in the introduction on the green side. The first one's going to be about how we restored millions of dollars of profit. You can read this story and how NASA builds teams in the introduction there. Second one, saving a $500 million project from cancellation called Stereo. And third, not in the book, happened later, but interesting adventure with the people who are building the moon electronics at Johnson Space Center. So Martin calls me up and says, I'm in real trouble. My customer relationship is broken. You know, we won the contract. Things were going great. It's been downhill ever since. We can't seem to get along. And now what they've done is they've reduced my share of the profit pool from 95% to 65%. And as you know, this means people like me get fired. So I need your help bad. By the way, are these diving catches? I don't know. You can decide for yourself. And he said, 4D workshop, you know, people don't think about the other processes. They just typically think about workshops because they're familiar with them from academia. But the customer won't attend, so I don't know what to do about this. And I said, look, Martin, you got to get it. It's not about you changing the customer. It's about you changing you. And he said, I don't understand how that can work. Can you give me an example? And I said, sure, let's take one from simple physics. You know very well that like charges repel, whether you're a positron or an electron, you're going to repel from each other. That's where you both are today, and that's the situation you're in, and that's the reason you have all this strife and conflict. So what you have to do is become, metaphorically, a neutron. You need to become neutral. If you turn yourself into a neutron, you'll take away the repulsion. They'll be able to come with you, and as you work together, you're all good, smart people. You'll find you like each other. And he said, I really don't think this is going to work, but I don't have any other choice, so I'll give it a try. And I said, okay, that's good. As always, we start with a team development assessment. They were about, I'm doing these by memory. These are imprecise, doesn't matter. There's no reason for me to show you the exact data anyway. They were up out of the bottom quintile. I remember that much for sure. Good to go for a workshop. They picked 24 people, the leadership of this big effort. Gosh, their contract in those days was about $1 billion. I think it's about $5-6 billion today. And so that they got the leadership team together, and about 24 people, which is our normal workshop's maximum size. And of course, we did the storyline shifting and managing emotions. One of their problems is that they're expressing anger when they need to express some glad group. Frustration, nice word for anger. It's a hard project. And need to express appreciation for the customer and address shared interests and on and so on and so on. So then we did, as we do today routinely, at the end of the workshop, I spent the last half day going through the context shifting worksheet with them, and you can read about the details of this otherwise. This is how we do every workshop, and gradually gave them the mindset shifts and the emotional shifts they needed. And they improved everything with the customer beautifully. The fee went back up to 95%. It just happened that there was a top management meeting with their top management and the customer's top management about a month later. And the customer's project manager walks in the room and says, I don't know what happened to these people, but for the first time I can work with them. And they gave us credit, generously enough. They said the 4D system fixed this for us. I continued to do assessments with him for years after, every 6 months, and maintained them up in top quintile place. So basically, through the application of the assessments, the workshop, and the context shifting worksheet, our aligned processes saved his job. And as I remembered, here's this notional kind of picture of them doing this for years. After a while, he went on to something else, and I was busy with the NASA contract, so we stopped, and they sunk back down a little bit, and we recently had another workshop with them and the customer this time to help them get going again. This one's kind of unusual. When I got a call from center management at Goddard that said, you know, Charles, I got a project in real trouble. Would you work with them? And I said, well, I'd be glad to talk to the project manager, and if she wants my help, we'll bring it. So she did. And at that point, they were on the verge of cancellation. It was almost a certainty that they were going to be canceled. It looked almost for sure. So what was going on here, in essence, was they had two really very competent, very proud organizations. NASA Goddard with two roles, the lead for the overall program, and also about 150 people working on various engineering aspects of the project. And the Applied Physics Laboratory at Johns Hopkins, it's typical, it's called a GOCO. Again, they wanted to lead for themselves, couldn't have it, lots of conflict. Did team development assessments, they're both in the bottom quintile, not surprising. We weren't as skilled at finding sins then as we are today, but it was obvious there were several. The first was inexperienced leadership. This job was way beyond what some of the people's experience base would let them do. And then there was broken RAAs at the interface between these two major organizations. So we worked on that a bit. And then they formed a pseudo leadership team, as you'll see is a common thing, with 12 top people from each side. The 3-day workshop, usual things I've talked about, storylines, emotions, appreciation, shared interest, and on down the line. And then we followed up with team development assessments of the teams, various teams within the two organizations. And this is what really fascinated me. First, they each made progress, but they moved almost in lockstep. I was very amazed. These are two teams that are geographically separated. They have different roles. They interface together, but through their common work together, they're able to interact enough that their social context rode across both, and the two teams moved up more or less in lockstep. Again, these are not the exact data. We don't need them. But I was very surprised by this. I had not seen this before. And we measured them finally after launch. The project was successful. The project manager, who I didn't speak with a lot because somebody else was doing this work at Goddard for me, he said after the launch, he said, Charlie, we went from the butt of being ugly jokes to being a model of managerial excellence thanks to the 4D system. He's actually written several articles about his work with us. The deputy, who was much closer to the day-by-day, and this is a very common thing, and I wanted to mention it to you, said to me as I was visiting Goddard one day, it was amazing to watch our performance and our customers' perspective track right along with our 4D assessment scores. So I commonly hear people say, well, how do you know the scores match performance? Because I hear it over and over. Let me remind you, since this started, we've worked with 1,000 teams, roughly 300 commercial, 700 NASA. Okay, so next thing, the Avionics System Division, Johnson Space Center, their job was to build the electronics to go back to the moon. The avionics is an aerospace word for electronics. They took the job very, very seriously because the whole effort was vulnerable from the start. It was a George W. Bush thing and questionable whether they had the money or not. So very sensitive about performance. They had about 150 people in about 10 teams, and I've made up these numbers. This isn't exactly right. And over the years we worked with them. These teams changed, moved around a little bit. They reorganized, people moved. But they really got it, that the potency and importance of having a leadership team. And what they understood was that people tend to mimic the behaviors of the leaders. So they picked these people that led each of these teams and the top leaders, and they made them into a team. And then we did TDAs, and all teams scored in the lower quintiles. In fact, I think almost every team was in the bottom quintile, as you can kind of see in this image. Again, these are approximations of what really happened. We did a 3-day workshop for the leadership team. This very high leverage, this very large organization did the people who mattered most. As I mentioned, they understood that people mimic their leaders' behaviors, and so they thought this was a very high leverage thing. They all met as a large group every 6 months to discuss their mutual issues and their TDA results and actions. And by mutual agreement, leadership teams shared all their TDA results, their benchmarking and everything. The rest of them just shared their action items unless they wanted to share their benchmark. It was up to them. They were very surprised to find out they had many common issues together. They didn't know this. So they put together little committees to resolve these things and move forward and do reassessments. And what happened then, here I'm showing you sort of notionally starting in the bottom quintile. I see all the little red arrows. They all moved up over 2-year period, which is about our standard thing. It takes about 2 years to move up to the top, and some of these arrows a little offset. I didn't take that much trouble with them. But again, it's just fascinating. They all moved almost in exact synchronous. Nobody was more than a quintile from the other. The common social context is in play. After 2 years, they're all in the top quintile. And years later, they continue periodic TDAs. I think they may be in their 6th or 7th year of continuous TDAs, maybe their 12th, 14th, I'm not sure, because it works for them. So these are great success stories for you to think about and meditate on, whatever. So now we go to number 6, which I'll talk to you about common errors people make in setting up assessments. Thank you for listening, and see you soon.